Welcome to the Wayne Bennett podcast, celebrating West Virginia's people, places, and the culture of Southern Appalachia. Now here's your host, Wayne Bennett.
Welcome to the Wayne Bennett podcast. This is episode number 37, and my name is Wayne Bennett. We just completed our recent survey, and the question was how you wanted your body to be handled upon your demise and death, and 40% of the people said they wanted to do the traditional burial underground. 40% said they wanted to be cremated. 10% said they wanted to be placed in a mausoleum or a crypt. And then the other 10% was made of people donating their body to science. And one person said they wanted their body handled by a taxidermist. And that was my oldest son, and we're checking into it right now. Nobody wanted to be buried at sea. Nobody wanted to be composted, which is, I read, might be one of the new things now. And nobody wanted to be frozen. So thank you for your participation, and looking forward to the next survey. Today, our special guest on October the 31st at Embassy Suites in Charleston, West Virginia, our guest will be enshrined in the National Wrestling Hall of Fame. He received a lifetime service to wrestling. We welcome former Fayetteville wrestling coach, Wayne Yonkelowitz. Welcome.
Morning.
I know you started the program at Fayetteville and Fayetteville Middle, but let's go back just a second. Tell me a little bit about your early life. Where'd you come from?
Well, I was born in New Orleans, Louisiana, and then we moved to Dayton, Ohio, where we lived for about 15 years. And after that, 2 years in Virginia Beach, Virginia, and then finally in Easton, Pennsylvania.
And why did you move? I mean, was it jobs for you?
Yeah, for my dad. He was into, it was called magnetic windings, where they made transformers that would go into equipment. He was offered a management job in Virginia Beach, so we moved there, and then that job played out, and he found a position in Easton, Pennsylvania, which would have been my senior year. And so, they asked if I would mind moving my senior year to a new school. So, it was one of those things. It'd be fine. And so we wound up in Easton, Pennsylvania.
And how long were you in Virginia Beach?
2 years.
2 years.
My sophomore, junior year.
And you played sports in high school?
Yes.
And what'd you play?
Let's see. Played football, was introduced to wrestling in Dayton, Ohio. Played football in Virginia Beach, wrestled in Virginia Beach. And then in Easton, it was, one of those, didn't know what I really wanted to do. And they had soccer, and I've always wanted to play soccer, so I went out my senior year to play soccer.
Now, when the moving around, what kind of childhood did you have? Did you like that, or was it something?
Yeah, I mean, it didn't bother me at all. Made friends very quickly. You're in sports, you're going to find friends. And so I was involved in that, in Virginia Beach. We would have pickup basketball games during the summer like that, or tag football. So we were in a neighborhood with kids my age and everything. So, yeah, it was very easy to make friends.
We just got back from Virginia Beach a couple of weeks ago. They have a Neptune Festival, and I don't know how long it's been going on, but we went a couple years ago and just fell into it, didn't even know that we're having it, and it was amazing. And so we were planning on going back. Well, last year they didn't have it because of the pandemic, and so this year on September the 24th, that weekend, we went back, and I mean, it is, if you've never been, it's something else. They have parades, they have races, yacht races, they have bands, they have vendors, any kind of vendor you can imagine. They have they bring in these professional sandcastle people, and they compete. And I mean, they had them from Russia, Canada, everywhere. And some of the things they do is unbelievable. I mean, with sand, you can't even imagine. But it's quite a festival. But and we've been lucky the 2 times we've gone. The weather has been good. I'd recommend. But Now you after graduation you went to Eastern High, Pennsylvania.
Easton
And
Area High School.
now that's up. You said Eastern. That's kind of up close to Scranton in that area.
Well, it's Allentown, Bethlehem area, Nazareth, those guys there. So very competitive wrestling.
Oh yeah, and that's not too far from New Jersey and New York.
Yeah, Phillipsburg, New Jersey. Alan Fell, who coached over at Oak Hill, went to Peaburg. So Peaburg and Easton are big rivalries.
Wow. We I used to take some kids down to James Madison to a summer camp, and it was a team camp, and we would have clinics in the morning and wrestle in the afternoon, and a couple teams came down. One came from New Jersey and one from New York, and I'm telling you, those guys were fun to watch. And they were solid too. And we enjoyed it until about Thursday afternoon after you wrestled 4 days in a row, and kids were kind of beat up, but they picked up a lot. So at Bloomsburg, what did you study at Bloomsburg?
Secondary ed, Earth and Space Science.
Now, Bloomsburg, that's where Russ Hout, the coach who was affiliated with the Olympics, he was there for a while. And then there was a Saunders guy.
Yep, they had very good wrestling, and they still do.
Yeah.
They have a very good wrestling program. But I had already been in the service for 4 years when I went to college. And so, I found other things. Outdoor activities is one of the things I really fell into. They had what they called a Quest program, which was kind of like Outward Bound. And so we would offer rock climbing and canoeing and backpacking on weekends to keep the kids there, because it was kind of like a community college or a commuter's college, and kids would go home on the weekends and then come back to school. So we were trying to offer something for kids to do that didn't go home. And so that's kind of how I got involved in outdoor education and then teaching science, because I really started out as an accounting major. And then one day it dawned on me why I wanted to stay in an office and count somebody else's money. So I went into a career where I didn't have to worry about money.
Teaching.
That's it.
Do they still have an Outward Bound program?
Yes.
Okay.
And I did do a course down at North Carolina around Boone, and it was, I can't remember now, 14 days backpacking, canoeing in that area.
Now, when you graduate from Bloomsburg, then what happened?
Well, I moved down to Fayetteville.
How did you end up in Fayetteville?
Well, working with Quest, that was the outdoor program at Bloomsburg, they sent a wanted poster for rafting guides. And this was Wild Water, run by the Dragon brothers. And I said, I always wanted to be a rafting guide. So I called them, and they said, you have to come down to West Virginia for an interview. And I kind of said, well, where's West Virginia? That kind of remark. And so I drove down on a Friday, and I can't remember the month. It was basically wintertime, something like that. And this was before, all the interstate, 64 was completed. And so came down for an interview, was interviewed, drove back, and then they said, well, if you'd like to have the job, you're hired. And so we had trainings that you had to do. So for the month of March, every weekend I would leave Bloomsburg after my Friday class, drive down, run the river Saturday, Sunday, and then drive back Sunday night, sleep somewhere, and then make my 8 o'clock on Monday.
Wow. So when you came to Fayetteville, that's what you were guiding on the side?
Yeah, I was basically guiding full-time. Then I met my wife. Well, not my wife at that time, but I was introduced to Pam. And then I was working with Wild Water for full-time. And it dawned on me I really needed to find a true job, thinking about retirement, and started subbing at the Fayette County school system, and then got hired for a middle school science position in January of 83. Yeah, January of 83.
Do you still run the river any?
No, I haven't run the river in, I don't know how long. I worked with Wild Water for 15 years.
Wow.
We ran the Gully too. And so I've seen the river in every condition and, everything, and it just got old.
Yeah. Yeah, I've been down to New River a few times, but I never tried the Gully. My wife went down the Gully one time. She didn't want to go back though. And we like to go watch them put in now at Summersville. And I actually went there a few weeks ago, and it wasn't too busy that day. They hadn't released the water that morning, and they were. Yeah. It's kind of changed a little bit from what
big change, because we would run it on a Monday. It was a 2-day trip. We'd run it on a Monday, stop down at the pipeline, it was called, hike up the mountain. Everybody would stay in Summersville. The guests and us would stay in Summersville. We'd have dinner at Country Roads Inn, Mama Gerald's, the Italian restaurant that was there.
Oh, yeah.
Excellent food. Then we'd go and run the lower half on the Gully, and we would do that Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. Then we'd come back to the new for the weekend, because everybody else would run the Gully on the weekends, because it was only, those kind of fall release.
Yeah.
And so we were the only ones on the Gully during the weekday and stayed away from the Gully on weekends.
When it was really busy.
Yeah.
Last year when we went up there, we went on the weekends, and it was just one right after another. Yeah. Man, they were lined up. As soon as one put in, it almost dangerous, kind of scary. But how did you get into the wrestling at Fayette? Well, they didn't have wrestling in Fayette County. How did that get started?
Mike Morrison, who was the AD for gym, I guess is the good word for it, was going around schools in the fall and hauling wrestling mat, and would instruct kids about wrestling during gym class. So he'd spend some time like at Fayetteville Elementary, and then some time at Mount Hope Elementary. And so he did that, and then he decided to have a county tournament. Just kind of a fun, thing for the kids to come in and roll around and everything. And I ran into him when he was doing that, and I said, I really would like to get this started in the schools, because, otherwise there was only basketball being offered, and not everybody can play basketball.
And this was around 83?
It was about 80, probably 84, 83, 84 that I ran into him, and we started talking about it, because again, I thought we needed to offer something for those kids that couldn't play basketball and wanted to do something besides just sit around. And so we talked, and then of course we contacted the SSAC to see what we needed to do. And so in 85, we really became kind of or 84, 85, a youth club. You had to kind of start out not as an official SSAC team, but kind of a farm league or whatever. I can't remember the words. I have 8th grade moments. I can't remember things.
Well, did all the schools in the county start at the same time?
No, just we started first.
Okay.
And then we got the program started. And then those 8th graders went to the high school. So it was kind of like, well, we've already started a feeder school. So the county agreed to start the wrestling program at Fayetteville High School. And they said, does any high school would like to have it? So Midland Trail found a wrestling coach. Meadow Bridge, Oak Hill, and Fayetteville started the wrestling program in 85 roughly. 86 maybe for the high schools.
Of course, because of numbers, Meadow Bridge has been on and off again, and with coaches too. You got to keep a coach, and but you became part of the Coalfield Conference. All those schools did, and have had some very successful wrestlers during the time that you were. Of course, you were the first coach, and it's hard to find an assistant because nobody had wrestled before, had they? And it's kind of difficult. Did the county buy the mats and stuff?
We inherited the mats that Matt was using because they were green.
Oh.
So we inherited that mat, which of course was 3-section, heavy, and it was basically kind of used as a tumbling mat, and one side was the wrestling mat. And then the county bought all the other schools brand new wrestling mats. and help with uniform, what they could to just kind of get us all started.
And while you were doing this, I mean, getting things, of course, uniforms and travel and those kind of things, it all takes a little bit of money. And it's always seemed to be fundraising. But while you were doing this, you also received some pretty dignitary type awards. Presidential Award for Teaching Science, Fayette County Teacher of the Year, the Milken Award, which is probably the highest honor a public teacher can get, I would think. How do you get a Milken Award besides being a great teacher?
Well, the Milken Award is done secretly. From what I understand, the Milken family out in California sends out kind of a poster. I don't think it's a poster, but sends out word that they're looking for teacher nominations. And it goes through the state level first, and then the state level sends out information to the county superintendents. And then the county superintendent looks at the criteria and decides whether they want to nominate a teacher or not. So it's done that way, total secrecy. And so when they said we were going to have a special, an assembly, and there was going to be a special guest there, I assumed that it was going to be Hickman from Rocket Boys, because that was just when the book had come out and he was traveling schools. So I kind of figured that. So they had the assembly, and there was people from the State Department, from the county, school board, and some people from Fayetteville there. And we're all sitting there in the bleachers at the Memorial Building, and they're talking and so forth. And one of the state board members, Department of Education, just kind of got up there and started talking, and he asked the kids, well, what would you do with $50? What would you do, or $25, what would you do with $250? And then he said, what would you do with $25,000? And so he kind of did that, and then they talked about what the Milken was, and then that's when they announced it.
Wow.
And so it was totally surprised, and then the worst part is that they had snuck my parents down from Easton and had them on the stage behind the curtains.
Oh, man.
And so they were up there, and my father-in-law, mother-in-law, and they went across the street to United Bank and got Pam out of work. So it was all done in secret. And of course, when Mom and Dad came out from behind there, Dad's crying.
Oh, man, that's great.
And the worst thing is at that time, that's where we practiced, was the Memorial Building. So I always had a habit of walking down there and lifting the curtains just to check and see, is there anything on my mats? Are the kids up there playing? And luckily, they knew my routine, so they had one of the teachers there to distract me so I wouldn't look behind the curtains.
We had a teacher at Park Junior when I was there. Quincy Madison was, of course, a music teacher and won the Milken Award, and it was a similar experience. We had a assembly and all these people, dignitaries, start coming in, and it was really special. And so, what'd you do with the $25,000?
Well, let's see. I bought microscopes for my classroom. We put on a new porch on the back of the house, and I can't remember. We may have banked the rest for new kitchen cabinets or something. I can't exactly remember what we did with that.
When you first started the coaching, did you have any problem getting kids out for wrestling?
No, actually, it was easier than it is now.
Yeah,
I had a lot of middle schoolers that were really interested in doing that, and the advantage of teaching is I got to know the kids, and I was helping with football at the time and on that. So getting kids to come out wasn't difficult, and the Harris's brothers had already been over in Raynell and had wrestled over in that area in the Pee Wee program and stuff. So they talked to other people to, other kids to come out. So it wasn't difficult to get kids out.
And of course, coaching football and in other sports sometimes kind of helps you look at the athletes and recruit people. And who's coaching at the middle school and the high school now?
Well, Vernon Farrell's doing the middle school program, and he's been doing that now for good gosh, I don't know, maybe 10 years, because he wrestled for me. And so at the time it all started, I was doing both middle school and high school, because there wasn't a high school coach, there wasn't a middle school coach. So the county allowed me to coach both the middle and high school for it. So then arguments with the board saying that I was double dipping, and I was only getting paid for one of them. I was doing the other one. I was being paid for the high school, and I was doing the middle school because I needed a feeder program to keep the kids least competitive, because there was no Pee-wee program at that time in Fayette County. For 2 years, Craig Brake, that's now over at Nicholas County, coached the high school. I coached the middle school, and then his sons and daughter were growing up, and so I took back over the high school, and we had a couple other middle school coaches come in, and then finally Vernon took over. And of course, Fayetteville High School doesn't exist anymore, so we're now a feeder school to Oak Hill High School.
And that was when they combined the two schools. It was nice. When you go into Oak Hill, they have some of the Fayetteville awards and trophies and things like that. I mean, it's good that they did that. Sometimes they don't do that when they consolidate.
Yeah.
You forget about one. Of course, as a coach, you become a tournament director. I know they've had the Coalfield Conference over there a couple of times. You've had some junior high tournaments, middle school tournaments, and that's a whole different issue. Also, you're trying to coach, but you're trying to run a tournament too, and it's always something pops up. It's not, you never know what's going to happen. What would you like to see happen with wrestling in Fayette County? I mean, what is it where you would like to see it be, or?
It's getting there. I mean, Trails got a very good program going. Of course, Oak Hill's doing very well, with their program. Meadowbridge is off and on. Yeah. I think for the last 2 years they may have had a program, and they only have several kids. But on that, and of course, there's no Valley High School anymore. So with the 3 high schools that we have, it's doing well. Would I like to see it do very, very well? Yes.
Who were some of the wrestlers that you coached that did well in the state competition that you remember?
Well, our very first one that placed was Ron Harris.
Yeah.
He placed there. John Goodson, who of course was on the Fayetteville State wrestling or high school football championship team, did very well down there. He's
got a couple
twice.
Pretty good sons right now.
Oh yeah, over at Independence.
Yeah.
And I think it's
Atticus, and Cyrus.
Yeah, Atticus wrestled last year for Independence. Did very well considering with the COVID, and they didn't get to wrestle a whole lot. I mean, he was, big. John was just gifted athlete. I mean, he was just a monster at that time. And then we had another one, Robert Harris, who went by the name of Bogus. Those two, if we would have had a 215 at that time, because there was none at that time, those two could have been very easily state winners at their weight class. They were just very good athletes.
Yeah, they were speaking of Goodson. His wife went to Park Junior High when I was there, and she was a tremendous athlete herself. And at that time, they didn't allow girls to play football, but if they would have, she would have started for me on right halfback. She was faster than any boy in the school and had played youth football and baseball before she got to the junior high. And we had a good football team, and she would have still started. Quite a family there. What about wrestling? We just got through with the Olympics, the World Championships. The United States is really doing a great job. I mean, compared to, still you got Russia and you got Iran. I mean, and those are the big 3 though, right? What would you like to see? Any changes or anything, additions you'd like to see in wrestling in general that you can think of?
Not offhand. I mean, I think it's doing very well. The weight management issue is always going to be there. I think the way we're doing it at the high school level right now is good
I agree.
for the kids. Because I can remember when I wrestled at the high school, you put on the old sweat sauna suits, we called it. You'd run around the wrestling room, and then you roll up in the wrestling mats. And
before the match,
before the match, or the night before, weigh-ins on that. So I think we're doing a very good job, and we're keeping up. And the hair issue, I don't kind of agree. I think we should keep it, cut. It's just old school, I guess you want to call it, on that. And I'm kind of liking. I didn't agree with it, but the more I think about it, where they can kind of wear their warm-up shorts over their singlets, because I think that's a big issue that's keeping a lot of the middle school kids from participating, is they don't want to wear the spandex, the tights, or whatever.
Yeah, I agree. I think the weight program is doing very well. I think it's better than it ever has been. And the only thing I'd like to see in college, I'd like to see them at a 220 or 225 weight class instead of 197 to unlimited. But in the high schools, they've made rearranged the weight classes a little bit. I'm thinking myself, I wouldn't mind seeing them even cut a weight class here and there, but I don't know where to suggest it, But when you start getting into middle school, when you get in 14, 15 weight classes, that's hard to come up with a team.
Full team. Sometimes it is. Our program's been, over the years, we go up and down. Sometimes at the middle school we have, the numbers, and then the next year. But Anstead has Freedom Fighters, are a Pee-wee league up there, and they're always full. So we're going to start seeing the benefit next year of a lot of those kids that are 5th grade right now that's wrestling for them will move to the middle school. So we're seeing that number increasing and hopefully not losing their interest, and we are going to grow. And then at the middle school, or at the high school before we closed, I finally was getting full teams, maybe missing the lower weight class, because that's the one you can't find. And if you're walking around school trying to find the smallest kid you could, I'll come out and wrestle. And it got to the point where I said, guys, you can have a girlfriend as long as she weighs this weight class, 103 or 106 or whatever it is. You can have a girlfriend during wrestling season, but she's got to wrestle, because you just had to fill that spot.
Well, one of the fastest growing sports right now in the high school is girls wrestling, and it's getting a lot of popularity. West Virginia has a program, and Iowa just started a girls wrestling in Division I, and that's pretty big time. So you personally, what you got planned in the near future, or what a bucket list, or what?
Well, one is, I'm going to keep involved with Fayetteville Middle School as a volunteer, whatever, for that, helping with fundraisers, doing that to keep that program alive. It's one of those, it's my baby. It's his, but you don't want to see the program die. We've finally gotten easy roll mats now and everything that we need. And of course, we're going to do our big middle school tournament again this year that we didn't have last year because of COVID on that. And, every once in a while he'll take over, do Coalfield Middle School Conference. So I'll keep helping with that. And, we like to travel. Both our parents her dad and my mom are still living. They're in their 90s. So, we work with her dad, Pam's dad, lives in Fayetteville. So we spend time with him, and then we go and see my mom, who's living in Easton. So right now, that keeps us busy, and who knows in the future.
That's right. Well, listen, you got to make me one promise. You'll come back and talk sometime.
Well, sure. This was great, and I want to thank you for nominating me for the Hall of Fame.
Well, it was an easy nomination. It was. I kind of looked at it, and I think that Southern West Virginia been neglected for a few years, and we were getting guys from the north that were getting put in the Hall of Fame pretty regular. And I said, "Gosh, we've got guys around here that," and so your name was one of the first that came up, and I'm looking forward to the 31st and being at the awards banquet. And anybody out there that might be interested in coming, check on wvmat.com and you can find a registration form. We'd love to have you. And but Wayne, congratulations. And
Thank you.
Remember, anyone out there who'd like to be on our podcast, we'd love to have you. Give me check us out on Facebook, or you can contact me at awbennett50. It's 50@gmail.com. And remember, if you're not dead yet, you're not done yet. And until next time, God bless you.